Greetings, welcome back. All right, so happy Friday, everybody. TGIF and all that good stuff. And lighter night, hockey wise. So, news of the day, and it's kind of an interesting board of news from all over. Starting with the Calgary Flames, who had their morning skate canceled today due to a positive test. At this point in time, the game still appears to be going ahead. Again, that could change between now and puck drop. We know that within a few hours of puck drop, they can reveal, yeah, no, we're not going to have it. And of course, we don't have the time to make up the games right now. They cannot push the season further back. It's not going to happen. So this probably lends itself to the idea that there has to be some real discussions about whether or not the playoffs are in Canada or in the States. If they're in the States, players can get vaccinated easier. And you're also in a situation where probably easier to make more money on it because you can have fans in attendance. It'd be weird though, because again, you could have like a bubble situation and whatnot, but you could have them play like other American teams are playing right now, and you could have some fans in attendance. I don't know how that would work though. If it was a series between Montreal and Toronto when it was being played in Buffalo, that'd be a very 2020 thing to happen in 2021. Just saying, be very, very. Just, of course, that's happening. So, yeah, Calgary canceled due to a positive test, and we'll see by game time whether or not that game's going to take place. Larkin will miss the remainder of the season for the Detroit Red Wings. He has an upper body injury. He will be reevaluated in 2 weeks, but he's done for the rest of the season. He joins Bobby Ryan as Red Wings, who have been sidelined for the rest of the season. So, that, of course, it's too bad for Larkin. Hopefully he's good to go for next season. Hopefully it's nothing nagging, and we'll see. But it is an upper body injury, so it could be a shoulder. I haven't heard anything about a concussion, so I'm thinking upper body injury. It'd have to be shoulder. But yeah, so we'll see. And then the other news with Detroit as well is that Joe Veleno may make his debut for them on Tuesday. And that could be sort of just a preview of another one of those players getting onto the roster for next year. You've got Sider coming in, you've got Raymond coming in, and of course, whoever they draft this year, if they draft high, they may draft somebody who could push for a spot on the roster this year. Again, depending on who they draft from where. I get the feeling that there's a number of players in the top 10 this year that probably have university commitments, so they're probably not going to reach the NHL right away, which can be to the benefits of the player, right? But so we'll see who Detroit drafts and whether or not they're able to add another guy that could play for them next season. I think next year's going to be very interesting for Detroit. Much like Ottawa this year, next year for Detroit is where we start to go, okay, so this rebuild, is it working or not? And in Ottawa, so far so good. In Detroit, that's where we'll find out. The good news for Detroit, the records got better this year, even though, like I've said, their roster I don't think is better than last year's, just the work ethic's there and the results are starting to show up. So it's all been pretty good. Joe Thornton was fined for interference last night against Matthew Perreault. I don't put the number on there of how much he's fined. It's the maximum allowable under the CBA. The CBA was just extended, so the values of these fines are not going to change. The money just goes into a fund anyways, so it's not like if you fine a player $50,000 rather than $4,000 or $5,000 that it's going to necessarily change behavior on the ice. But hey, Thornton gets fined, which is, yes, it's a slap on the wrist, and it's a, we see you, we know what you did, don't do it again kind of thing. And so people will say that's not enough, or, oh, he did this, but what about this? And then we get into the whole player safety argument. The player safety argument's a fascinating one because, again, if you go into comment sections on reviews for games, you would think that there should be 2 or 3 suspensions. If it's a busy night in the NHL, 2 or 3 suspensions a day. That, okay, that should be a suspension. This should be a suspension. It'd be crazy. And if we put it to fan votes, it'd be ridiculous. It'd basically be along the lines of who you cheer for and who you don't. And yeah, so I'm glad the situation is not one where a popular vote decides who does or doesn't get suspended. Unpopular right now, odds of Columbus making the playoffs. And Elvis Merzlikins, in the midst of all the losing that's been going on, he's kind of tired of it. And I don't get the impression he's tired of the organization or he's asking for a trade. but he's tired of this season. He's tired of losing, and that's good. You want players to come out and say we're tired of losing. There's only so many times you can hear somebody go, yeah, well, we came out tonight, we battled hard, and we got into the dirty areas, and we were doing our best to get pucks in deep. They had answers for everything, and we'll just keep doing what we're doing, and we have faith. We believe in the system. We believe that we're doing the right things. Coach has some really good ideas, and we got some we've been hurt with injuries too. So, without some of the guys here, and we know a couple of them are coming back, we can turn this around. How many times have we heard that interview? So Elvis coming out and basically saying he wants to just delete this year and not think about it after this year. It's a refreshing change because, again, there's a reason that I can recite these post-game interviews just off the cuff because I've heard it so many times where, you guys have lost 11 in a row. How do you feel? Well, yeah, no, losing sucks, but, we're still trying. We're battling, and we got to keep battling. We got to keep trying to get, the pucks in deep. And, it's really important that we do that. And, just keep playing that dump and chase, some puck control, and maybe work a little bit more on that and a little bit harder in practices. Like, it's just, okay. When they get 10 seconds into an answer and you go, all right, I don't need to listen to this, and you just ignore the rest of it. So, Elvis, thanks for your honesty, and hopefully the general manager is listening and makes the right changes. And I know that a lot of people are going to think it's just coach, which part of it is definitely coaching, but there's more to it than that. There's more going on with Columbus than that. I think part of what submarined their season this year is that they had free agent money. They wanted to go out and get free agents. They could not attract the players that they wanted to in free agency. So they were going into the season knowing that they were at least shorthanded on some level, and it hasn't worked out for them. So, yeah. Dylan Strome, speaking of players it's not working out for, he is likely to be scratched for the second straight game, as apparently Chicago's going with 11 forwards, 7 defense again. And what's interesting with this is that Strome is, to me, a Seattle candidate. He is a player that's had a rough go of it. He's still young. He's got a good pedigree. He was a first-round draft pick. His contract would not be an impediment to an expansion team. He might be a good pick out of Chicago. It's been a rough go. He had a good start with them after the trade from Arizona, and it's fallen off after that first year. So, for Strome, we'll see if he's able to get in the lineup, if he's able to get things going, but it's not been a great year for him in Chicago. I get why they're scratching him. I'm not making the argument he shouldn't be scratched. Just to me, if I'm Ron Francis, I might be looking at him and saying, we might be able to work with that, of the players who might be available from Chicago. Tyler Mott. So all of most of the Vancouver Canucks went through dealing with COVID, and most of them were symptomatic that got it. And Mott apparently is still out dealing with it. Travis Green's revealed that, yeah, he's out for COVID reasons. Now, he's off the protocol list, which means he doesn't have it. But he could be dealing with what we're seeing as long haul symptoms, which is usually fatigue, and it can be a lot of other things, but basically just not having your energy, not having your oxygen level high enough that you can have any hope of going out and playing hockey. So hopefully that doesn't last for much longer. Mott is not a huge goal scorer. He is not the most talented player in the Canucks, but he is a heart and soul guy, and he makes a huge difference to the team when he's playing well. He can do a little bit of everything, and as he showed last year in the playoffs, he can score goals here and there too. So Mott is probably the best example since the channel started of me saying, yeah, completely wrong. When they picked up Mott from Columbus, I was floored. And then, completely wrong. Mott's been a perfect fit for the Vancouver Canucks. Hartman with the Minnesota Wild, deciding to stay with the Minnesota Wild, signed a contract extension with them yesterday. 3 years, $1.7 million per. Again, I don't do videos just strictly on contract extensions when it's Hartman signing at $1.7 million for 3 years. So it's a great contract for him. It's a good contract for Minnesota as well. He's been a good fit in Minnesota, playing well at center. He's played on the wing, and he's played on various lines. So these are players that you need to have in your lineup, because during the season you're going to have injuries. You're going to have different places where you need players to play. And in Minnesota's case, if he can really figure out the center spot, that would be great, because Minnesota has been coveting the idea of having better depth at center than what they've had. So, yeah, Hartman, 3 years, $1.7 million each year. That's not too shabby. Coming back to the conversation of the day, PK Subban revealed on his social media that he's been dealing with COVID symptoms of his own. He's been basically in bed and trying to fight his way through it. And it's hit him pretty hard. So I'm glad he's posting about it and talking about it, and hopefully he's not out for that much longer. The one silver lining in that would be that he wouldn't feel pressure to come back to a team that is not in the playoff run. So whereas some players might feel like, okay, well, I'll come back and play. I don't really feel like it because I don't feel well enough, but I might come back and play because, we're in a playoff hunt. New Jersey is not. So Subban can take his time, and, we'll see whether or not he comes back before the end of the season. Players who may be coming back before the end of the season, though, for Pittsburgh, Evgeny Malkin is on that list. And that's good news for Penguins fans, of course. Malkin practicing. Mike Sullivan not saying how quickly he'll be back, but basically, hey, he's back practicing, so we know it'll be soon. And he's saying that it's picking up the spirits of the rest of the team as well, having Malkin out there with him. So for Pittsburgh, who have been playing very well lately, if they add Malkin, that's just another boost to a team that was already playing well anyways. I think Jeff Carter's fit in pretty well there too. And don't get hung up on the goals and points with Carter at this stage. He's not that player, but I do think that he's fit in well. And he was playing well in LA before the trade as well. So it's not like he was just getting buried in LA, and it's a 10% of the player he used to be. The offense is not really as much of a part of his game as it used to be. And with Malkin coming back, you have to think that'll affect other players' roles on the team. But you can never have too much depth at center. History has revealed you can never have too much depth at center. Now, in the news for tomorrow, and because I don't know how Saturday's going to turn out, I want to make sure I'm mentioning this here and now. Tomorrow will be game number 1600 for Zdeno Chara. So he is within a couple of years of shouting distance of Gordie Howe as well. But I don't know how many more years he plays. I do get the feeling that if Chara wants to come back and play next year, that the Capitals would have that discussion with him. If he hit the market, I do think other teams might call, because he's been a useful top six defenseman for them, and he's still very physically imposing. He still has a certain presence on the ice, and I think that would be something that teams would look at. So for Washington, game number 1600. And I wish him nothing but the best. Yeah, I wish he'd played it in Boston, but that's fine too. He's played pretty well for Washington, and Boston's defense course held up pretty well as well this season. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not the Capitals play the Bruins in the playoffs. I wouldn't mind seeing that myself, only because then you have Chara against the Bruins, and I think it would be a very fun series. And based on last weekend and the way the two fan bases were arguing, yeah, I think that could be a very entertaining series to cover. So we'll see if that's where we end up. But let me know your thoughts in the comments section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.